For my final assessment, I had Howard Gardner, and we're going to talk about his life, his thoughts, and his theory. Let's start with his life. Howard Gardner was born in Scranton, Pennsylvania in 1943. His parents had fled to Germany in 1938 with their 3-year-old son, Eric. Right before Howard was born, his brother died in a tragic sleighing accident. These events were not talked about during his childhood, but had an impact on his thinking and development. His parents did not allow a lot of physical or risky activity and made him focus more on intellectual and creative processes. He attended a prep school and later went to Harvard to study law. However, he met and was tutored by Erik Erikson. This encounter sealed his ambition of becoming a scholar. He entered Harvard's doctoral program in 1966, and the following year became a part of Project Zero, which we will talk about later on. Project Zero provided Gardner with the environment to explore his interest in cognition. He wrote a full-length statement called Frames of Mind, which discussed his theory of multiple intelligence. Along with his early years, I also wanted to show you some clips currently of him and his family. And if you look at the one in the top right, this is a photo of him and his son and his grandson. They were out on a boating trip, just enjoying the day. If you look at the top left, this is a picture of him and his granddaughter having a lazy Sunday afternoon. She's so cute. If you look at the bottom left, this is a picture of him and his son Ben. And if you look at the bottom right, this is a picture of him and his wife. Now we're going to talk a little bit about his thoughts. On this slide, I included a video of Howard Gardner, and he's actually talking about multiple intelligences and how it relates to children and education.
We have schools because we hope that someday when children have left schools that they will still be able to use what it is that they've learned. And there is now a massive amount of evidence from all realms of science that unless individuals take a very active role in what it is that they're studying, unless they learn to ask questions, to do things hands-on, to essentially recreate things in their own mind and transform them as is needed, the ideas just disappear. The student may have a good grade on the exam. We may think that he or she is learning, but a year or two later, there's nothing left. If, on the other hand, somebody has carried out an experiment himself or herself, analyzed the data, made a prediction and saw whether it came out correctly, if somebody is doing history and actually does some interviewing himself or herself, oral histories, then reads the documents, listens to it, go back and asks further questions, writes up a paper, that's the kind of thing that's going to adhere, where if you simply memorize a bunch of names and a bunch of facts and even a bunch of definitions, there's nothing to hold on to. The idea of multiple intelligences comes out of psychology. It's a theory that was developed to document the fact that human beings have very different kinds of intellectual strengths, and that these strengths are very, very important in how kids learn and how people represent things in their minds, and then how people use them in order to show what it is that they've understood. If we all had exactly the same kind of mind and there was only one kind of intelligence, then we could teach everybody the same thing in the same way and assess them in the same way, and that would be fair. But once we realize that people have very different kinds of minds, different kinds of strengths, some people are good in thinking spatially, some people are good in thinking in language, other people are very logical, other people need to do hands-on, they need to actually explore actively and to try things out. Once we realize that, then an education which treats everybody the same way is actually the most unfair education, because it picks out one kind of mind, which I call the law professor mind, somebody who's very linguistic and logical, and says, if you think like that, great. If you don't think like that, there's no room in the train for you. If we know that one child has a very spatial or visual spatial way of learning, another child has a very hands-on way of learning. A third child likes to ask deep philosophical questions. A fourth child likes stories. We don't have to talk very fast as a teacher. We can actually provide software, we can provide materials, we can provide resources which present material to a child in a way in which the child will find interesting and will be able to use his or her intelligences productively. And to the extent that the technology is interactive, the child will actually be able to show his or her understanding in a way that's comfortable to the child. We have this myth that the only way to learn something is read it in a textbook or hear a lecture on it, and the only way to show that we've understood something is to take a short answer test, or maybe occasionally with an essay question thrown in. But that's nonsense. Everything can be taught in more than one way, and anything that's understood can be shown in more than one way. I don't believe because there are 8 intelligences we have to teach things 8 ways. I think that's silly. But we always ought to be asking ourselves, are we reaching every child? And if not, are there other ways in which we can do it?
Now we're going to talk a little bit about his theory. Okay, so on this page you're looking at Gardner's multiple intelligences. There are 8 of them. First, we're going to talk about the naturalistic. This is a person who loves animals, plants, and nature and understands the natural world. That's where you're going to get your biologists and your conservationists. Then we're going to look at linguistic, and that is a person that excels in words, languages, and poetry. That's where you're going to typically have your poets and your writers. The next one we're going to look at is your visual and your spatial. This is a person who excels in shapes, designs, graphics, and visualization. This is your designers and your engineers. Musical is anyone that excels in performing and composing musical pieces. This is your singers, your musical composers. Interpersonal is the ability to organize people, group activities, and social relationship. This is your leaders and your social workers. Then you have intrapersonal, which is the ability to understand one's inner feelings and have self-realization and to know about oneself. This is your philosopher and your clergy. The next one is your logical, and they excel in math and logical thinking. This is your bankers and your accountants. And last but not least is your kinesthetic. This is a person who excels in performing sports, physical activities, and body movements, and that would be your actors and your athletes. This page is showing my assessment. You can go online and just Google multiple intelligence test, and there will be several of them that pop up, and this is just the one that I chose. It asks you several questions and you answer, rating them from 1 to 5. 1 meaning that the statement describes or does not describe you at all, and 5 meaning that it describes you exactly. And so some of my questions were, I often look for weaknesses in myself that I see in others, and then you would rate that from 1 to 5. Another one is, I enjoy hearing challenging lectures, and you would rate that. And when you go through all of the questions, you hit your submit button, and then it will give you your final assessment, which tells you your top 3 intelligences. And so for mine, I had nature, I had intrapersonal, and I had interpersonal. And so for nature, it says you are sensitive to nature and the environment. You probably know the names of rocks, flowers, birds, and trees. You love to be outdoors. Here are some ways to use your nature intelligence in your learning. And it gives you different things that you can do, such as work in the garden, read about plants and animals, study habitats, read nature magazines. And then for the intrapersonal, which is self, it says you have a very good sense of self. You like to spend time by yourself and thinking over things. And then it gives you a list of things that you can do for that. And it says, go on guided imaginary tours, encourage journal writing, work on the computer, read cookbooks. And then for my last one, which is interpersonal, it's social, and it says, you like to develop ideas and learn from other people. You like to talk. You have good social skills. Effective techniques of enhancing your learning using your social intelligence include taking part in group discussion or discussing a topic one-to-one with another person. And then it offers another list of things for you to do, such as doing team learning, investigating projects, setting up interview questions, and interviewing your family and writing down the interview. So I'm going to go ahead and put the link on here, and if you guys would like to go and take your own tests, then you can figure out what your strengths are.
On this slide, I wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about Project Zero. So Project Zero started out as a collection of about 10 to 15 research assistants and senior scholars. Howard Gardner was a founding research assistant. The group met to discuss philosophical, psychological, and conceptual issues that related to the arts and art education. In 1972, Gardner became one of the directors responsible for raising money for the project, and during the following decade, Gardner dedicated himself to research in cognitive psychology and developmental issues. This resulted in his many books and articles about his multiple intelligences theory. On this page is a list of website resources, and I just went through and picked 4 different websites that had really good things to offer to implement into your classroom. On the first one, it is earlychildhoodnews.com. The second one is educationworld.com. The third one is scholastic.com. And the fourth one is instituteforlearning.com. And what they offer are more in-depth information about the intelligences. It offers you common characteristics of the 8 intelligences, so that would be more of what characteristics do the children portray. Then it offers teaching tools, strategies, and environmental strategies for supporting their intelligences. Active Learning Center activities. I know on the next slide I offer you some centers, but on these websites it goes into more depth about different things that you can offer. And it also gives you lesson plans. So I would hope that you would take this and, like I said, implement it into your future classrooms.
On this page, I just wanted to offer you guys some resources from our book and maybe some things that we've learned in class and how it can tie into multiple intelligences. And it's really actually something that is child-led because they're pulling the strengths from the intelligences that they have, but you also want to somehow build the ones that may be a little weaker. And so I thought that the project approach that we just finished doing was something that would be great for that because it encompasses everything. You know, you have your graphing and your counting. You have your, taking pictures if you like that sort of thing. Singing songs, reciting poems. You can create foods that relate to culture. There are just so many things that you can do within that. And then also, I think centers would be awesome because you can do group activities where they work together. You can have a dress-up area. You can have a journal writing area. And so that really touches on a lot of the intelligences and helps them pull those out. And that's also a way that you can assess them by using their intelligences. I hope that this has been helpful for you and that you can take away from it and that you can somehow use this in your future classrooms with your future children.